You have an opportunity to influence what they're going to do. And there are people who want to be successful. It's a very relationship in business. So as we talk about, whatever we talk about today, I'm sure there'll be a common theme about relationships. And you need a relationship with these people before you need them to do something. It's like calling up your brother and saying, "Can I borrow your pressure washer?" And he says, "What have you done for me lately?" That's my brother. It's better to, be on good terms with your brother and help him in his yard, and then you ask for a favor, and it's no problem. If you spend time with legislators and bring them into your fold and educate them about what you're doing, show them your projects, help them understand what's good about what you do, help them understand assistance you need from them, resource assistance or whatever it might be. When it comes time to find what you need from them, they have a better understanding of what's going on, and it seems much less transactional. It gives them an opportunity to find a win in their space. So that's the legislators. There's all kinds of groups of people in the room. There are other lobbyists in the room. Some of them might be lobbying against you. And you would think, who would lobby against conservation districts? Well, there's a long list of people who would line up and prosecute. Please don't do that. I can think of the public works board, for instance. The cities, the counties, the PUDs, they seem like your friends, right? Well, of course they're your friends. Well, they have an account called the Public Works Assistance Account that they fund capital projects through. And right now, you're the benefactors of some of that money. And they're not happy about it. And when the legislature comes together again, they're going to talk about that with their legislators and say, let's keep the conservation districts out of that account. Yet they're your friends. I mean, there are other local governments, and local governments tend to have help each other. But there are lobbyists, a whole variety of lobbyists in there that are sometimes on your side and sometimes not. It tends to make for a good sort of collegial behavior amongst lobbyists, but because you recognize the fact that you're in an oppositional situation with a lobbyist at some point, but 2 weeks from now you can be on their side trying to affect the same kinds of gains. So when you're working with legislators, you aren't in fact lobbying on behalf of the local government. And you're representing a government, a conservation district, and there's a need in that space to have a consistent, well-known message. And I don't want to just talk on and on because these two are very good at doing exactly that. Yes.
Then let me give you a break. In the lobbying 101, advocacy 101 scale, one of the key takeaways, the aha moment for me was legislators get into office because they have some special interest that is close to their heart. Not many of them have conservation districts close to their heart when they get into office. So part of our job is to help them learn and understand the really special people and work that you do. But if you can somehow tie in our conservation message to something that touches their heart, you have a friend and you become a trusted information source for those legislators.
Good point. I see a trend in electeds in the legislature who come in with really one thing close to their heart. And it's usually not conservation districts. It's mental health or transportation or criminal justice. They're fired up about something. And it's not riparian zones, unfortunately, or soil conservation or whatever. So you have to help them get there. Yes.
Sure. So as Tom said, I've done a little bit of everything for the state legislative process. In 3 years, I worked on 3 different races, state, federal, and initiative. I worked in the House and the Senate in Olympia. and I did policy work, I did media relations, and I did constituent services in 3 years. And then WACD hired me, and so I've been working for your membership and member districts since 2017. If James covered the political science 101, I'll give you some of the initial insights that I wish that I was able to tell people every time they come to Olympia. One, as James said, the best time to have a conversation with the legislator is not when you want something. It's being able to establish that relationship first, being able to showcase this is what we do, these are the people that we work with, this is what we're able to accomplish. And then have the second conversation, the third conversation being that ask if you have it during the legislative session. Because legislators, as James said, you might want to be a legislator, but I would like to be a legislator for one day. Because in the span of a week of the legislative session, they go from approximately 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 15-minute appointments for an hour, maybe a half hour for lunch. You usually have 1 or 2 committee meetings, so you're expected to listen to people speak. You have policy discussions on amendments, and then you hopefully don't have to vote on the floor until 1 or 2 a.m. that night. Do that for 60 days or 105 days, and pretty quickly the limiting factor is making sure you keep someone's attention for more than 10 seconds. Because I've seen legislators fall asleep in committee process, fall asleep on the floor. It's exhausting process. And so having those conversations with folks be during the interim, when you meet them on a Farm Bureau tour or a salmon project tour or something that the Conservation District organizes, and just being able to get to know them, have them recognize your face, and pretty soon they'll be able to see conservation districts and you in particular as a trusted individual, as someone with credibility, and that relationship is easy to operate on. And it also helps, if you've never done this before, get that first meeting out of the way, you feel a lot better going into the second one. Folks coming to Olympia, it can be very intimidating. This might be the only time of the year you wear a suit. It's definitely a process that can be tricky and challenging, and just being able to go in knowing, and the legislators will know that you're uncomfortable. I mean, this is one of 15 appointments they have that day. Odds are they've seen a million people who have been nervous. And as long as you are confident in what you're saying and know you can back it up with good site visits or before and after photos, that's pretty easy. I think really, as just keep repeating what James said, it would be good for the people who know and have done this before, like us, what brought you to come to this session as opposed to DSP or de-escalating conflict. Because it's fine and good if we can talk for an hour, but if no one takes away anything that they can't later use, I would say that's a failure on at least my part. So are there any questions? Why did you come here? Was it just because you saw James and Dana and it's like, oh, that's great people, we can listen to them.
I'm glad to be up here with Dana because Dana's dialed in. I've seen Dana trotting around the Capitol for a long time on many occasions, and we've had some nice conversations. But she is always, this is what's happening. This is what I'm seeing. I'm on my way. This is my message. And, got a clear idea of what she wants to accomplish.
Yeah, question in the back.
My name is Amy. I'm within Conservation District, and I'm also the Vice President of WACD. My question would be, perhaps I should have gone to de-escalating conflicts. Because what happens when you get into a legislative meeting with your legislator and there's conflict going on and you're kind of just finding out about what's going on, and the legislative person is giving manager a hard time.
So I think I can speak to that a little bit. When we went to legislative days on the Hill, so those of you who don't know me, I'm Dana. I'm with the Pierce Conservation District. And yeah, I hang out in Olympia because to me it's a sport. I view it as a sport, like who's on what base and what's happening and when. But I think the one thing that is really important, and even to your point, is coming in with your clear message. Because if you continue to bring people back to the positivity that we give into our communities, you're gonna win them over at least a little bit. You may not walk out of there with a yes and that we're gonna follow whatever you just said, but what you're gonna end up with is hopefully a conversation starter. You might not diffuse the negative energy, but you're gonna move that negative energy into a positive conversation that you get to say, we've got 15 minutes now. Can I get 10 minutes on your docket when you come back into district? And can I meet with you in your space, or can you meet with us on our space? Can you come out to one of the farms that we're working on? Can you come and have a conversation with, your neighbor? Because oftentimes you can see that either the neighbor is the point of conflict sometimes, or sometimes that opportunity for change. So I think one of the things that I would say is de-escalation for anything is important, but the opportunity to turn a negative into a positive, I think we can all do that. We all love what we do. And when people watch our passion, they want what we're selling, right? Because we have to think about this as sales a little bit. I hate to say it, but that's kind of what we're all in when you're in politics and you're in this process. What is it that you are selling? Being clear about it and being concise about it. That's one of the reasons why I didn't quite make it on the legislative stuff the other week, but having a combined effort and a collaborative wording and process is really helpful. It's not going to cover everything immediately, right? But I would say the one thing that I try to do my best in is that I go from both sides of the aisle, right? I tend to, yes, I'm not going to lie, I lean more Democratic because in Pierce County, there's a lot of Dems down there, but I'm very happy to actually meet with some of the folks who are on the other side who come at me with, why are you taking taxpayer dollars? What are you doing with your rates and charges? How is that benefiting me? And as soon as we turn it around and I show them exactly how it's benefiting their constituents, immediately they're like, well, how can I get you to help me more? And so we've had a really good opportunity in the 25th to make those transitions and to make those folks see what we're doing in a good way. And it is just being visible. I think one of the things that conservation districts are really good at is being the best kept secret. And I think we all need to be a little more boisterous about the good work that we're doing. So, and one of the things that I often do too is when we've been pairing up with other district managers, I've gotten the great benefit of seeing Sarah work her magic in the room. So I'm not sure why you're not up here too, because you should be. So bring the chair up.
There's a legislative tour coming up in your district, soon, right? Which is
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
You're not invited to slow capacity. Another four county projects, which is super fun. I think tours are our sweet spot. We love to get people in the field and show them a really good time and have those super dialed in messages like what you said, and not just focus on what sharing information, what it is you're seeing, but why that's important. Who it's important to, which one of your sources paid for that, and how we're pairing out with the other land sources that are paying for these projects, and we love to bring our banners out, our community members, and have them give personal testimony. Love to bring partners in and speak on our behalf and say, instead of just us saying how cool we are, nonprofits, extension, advocacy groups say they make a difference to us because, and that really helps.
I think every single one of us in the room has had an opportunity to engage in a positive and a negative way with the legislature. Is that true? Head shakes. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. This is a safe space. We've got that it's sometimes hard. I think the other piece is that, the comment that I've been down there and I've been doing this a while, it's about relationships. It really is. I've gotten to make relationships with folks, not just in the Pierce County area, but all across the state of Washington. I started doing this when I was with the Noxious Weed Control Board, when I was fairly young and innocent in my time there, of saying, oh yeah, everybody's going to be my friend. It's going to be great. And then recognizing that everybody wasn't our friend and it wasn't always that great, but no matter what, I could always leave them with at least one thing to think about as I left the room. My motto was at least give them one thing to think about. Because if you walk out of that room and they're not thinking, they're not gonna think about you. They're not gonna think about the process. They're not gonna think about anything beyond that. If you tell them what you want to tell them, but you don't ask them what they may have questions about, we've already missed that opportunity too. That's also why we started this conversation off with, tell us what you want to hear. It's gonna be different for every single person and every single opportunity. I will say I do some other fun things that I've shared with this group. I play legislative bingo. I don't know how many of you have seen me do that one, which literally I pull legislators' names out of a hat before I go down, and I put it on a bingo sheet, and I take selfies with them. And when I see them, I then tag them later, but then also, if I get a bingo, I yell bingo really loud and embarrass them. That's what's fun. But that makes them remember who I am. And I've had literally legislators run across the foyer and come up and say, I need to make sure I'm in a selfie and I'm in a bingo. And it's very interesting that like that is something that is personable to them. And it's not me asking anything. That's the other thing is that they have people asking them things all day long. And so oftentimes just that little like reprieve, a couple of my legislative friends, when I go into their office and I know I've got my 15 minutes, I will bring them a snack and I will say, you already know why I'm here. Please enjoy the snack and I'm going to be quiet. And it actually works. I just had somebody message me the other day and one of our legislators said, hey, I know we haven't had our 15-minute snack yet in a while, so I'm wondering free. And when you get them contacting you, you know that that's a good, sweet space to be in. That doesn't mean that they're always going to be your advocate, but it means that they're going to be your ally. And that's really important in Olympia. They may not be able to stand up and 100% agree with whatever your legislative piece is, but they may be able to say, yeah, that's great. Another important thing is having solid paperwork of what we're doing and leaving some of that behind.
I was just gonna segue from what you said to Amy, and that the people that you're talking to that are your representatives, that they may want to yell at you about something, the next time you talk to them, it's probably not going to be something that comes up. And say, talking about relationships over a period of time, there's going to be instances where that's going to happen. It's going to be uncomfortable, and someone's going to rant, rail, and rave, and they might not remember by the next time you see them. Now, if you're thinking about specifically conversations like, because perception and gossip get around, it's always important to make sure that, you know, that if they're fighting with you, it's on the facts, because very easily, especially with you know, how quick a session it is and how small that world is, bad information can get around. And that changes people's perspectives when you're able to say, well, actually, this is the case and not this. And I'm sure that's happened in your neck of the woods too. So it's going to happen, and it's not going to always feel good. But I think Dana's right that, you know, there's always going to be good outcomes and bad outcomes. And especially for your legislators, you've got two retired farmers, and I'm trying to remember Representative Dye has. I thought she had more like a lamb farm, but yeah.
Yeah, she works with livestock.
Yeah. Yeah, so they know, you know, they know why soil irrigation, why water conservation is all important, and yeah, and they yell because they care. They want you to be able to do as much as they can.
No, Sarah.
I'm curious, if you have any thoughts about, helping to train and prepare new board members?
That's a great question, because it's one turn.
Okay. We have some tenured board members that they know how to go in there, they give them a few minutes of background, like we just seamlessly see the flow together. We do the main point, here's the ask, here's the connections. We're there, we're out on time, it just works. And then we have other folks in the past that have come in new where they're not really sure what to do. And even though we kind of preach them and the stories, they get off on tangents and they realize, oh my goodness, our 15 minutes is over with, and we haven't got really what we want to say. So I'm just curious, do you guys have thoughts about training and support for student supervisors?
I've seen the buddy system work really well, where especially if this is someone coming in as a new board member, that hasn't really engaged in the legislative process or with elected officials before, pairing them with someone who has and making it a lot less scary. You know, if you are responsible for saying one piece of that conversation, as opposed to being responsible for filling a full 15 minutes, it makes it a lot more tangible and you're able to see someone else start that conversation, be friendly and engaged. And there are going to be supervisors that's not their jam. That's not why they got on the conservation district board, is to talk with elected officials and feel like they're asking for money. And so being able to find those, it might only be one supervisor, but you know, that person could be a rock star, or all five could want to be engaged. It could be very different from district to district. And I think being honest about what the supervisors wanted to do, what the staff's willing to do, and then making sure that it's a coachable challenge rather than something where you can't do it, you freeze out.
I'm gonna put a shameless plug for WACD right now, which is a fantastic resource. I'm gonna say I feel completely spoiled as an agency director having an association that supports what we do. I can't think of anybody else in that spot. And so they're a great resource. I would encourage all of you to reach out to WACD, to Ryan or Heather or Tom. And they have a fantastic contract lobbyist, Brent Brady, who's very successful, really talented, and to talk about what you want to accomplish, what's going on in with your legislators, where you need to engage, how that can work, and be part of the Hill Day as well. I think that probably doing Hill Day with a supervisor would be a great learning experience for them. So use WACD, they're a great resource.
I aim to say that.
And you can also call me if you want to. And we have a new policy director, Kate Devleopment, who's a very talented lady, and she'd be happy to talk with all of you about what you do.
I know one of the very first years that I went to legislative days and then new supervisors, it was really helpful to go with another district that was on the other side of the state. Like I got to go with Pierce, CD, and hang out and go visit their legislators and see what they had to say and then introduce ourselves so that it's not a east side, west side, it's a we're together and we want to support each other.
When's Sunday, February 5th?
Give or take.
Mm-hmm. That's 6 of my mind, I could be wrong.
It is.
Think about that.
I will say the other thing that we've done is that we actually have a game plan. Remember, I said I think about this in sports. You don't just go into it without at least a little bit of a game plan. So we have a layout of what are some things we want to talk about, and then we actually have like a no-go zone. If a conversation goes into that area, what do we do? Right? How do we bring it back? Because that's important to think about, is that if it goes into that edgier space as a supervisor, how can you help bring that conversation back? And how can we then get it into a track that makes sense? So there's some good play off of each other, and it is a playbook ultimately. You have a couple of things that you want to say, you have some things that you definitely want to get in there. And I know you folks give some good information the day of. It's also having those conversations with your folks prior to that day. So it's a build up.
I guess, Mike Tobin with North Yakima Conservation District. Yeah, my supervisors didn't join the board to go be politicians.
Yes.
But we kind of talked about, kind of all over the place. Your 15 minutes in Olympia, that better not be your first time. And you really only need 3 minutes of that to show them the play that you would like them to run for you. I find the most value is the rest of that 12 minutes is what can we do for you? What hurdles are you facing in healthcare negotiations? I mean, if you do that, you have now reinforced everything you've done before. You've befriended them. You don't meet your legislator and give them an ask or a hard sale or a lot of information. In fact, you need to kind of figure out a way to play. I've found great success in being just the guy at the wall, the guy that makes sure that I'm not pushing to go shake their hand, introduce myself. It's choose a quiet moment, follow up from that, and learn their staff. Learn their staff. The staff is gatekeepers, and if I'm not mistaken, is there gonna be an effort moving forward that staff becomes a larger piece of their? So I think it'd be important for us to know that. Moving forward, so if you know the gatekeeper, you don't necessarily need to know.
The gate's more likely to open.
And I think Tobin has a really good point about legislative assistance. Something that I've seen before is people being disappointed when you're talking with that staff person. And sometimes they're actually the better person to have a conversation with. Because they've seen a lot more of the incoming material than usually the legislator does, just because someone has to sift through everything. And they're more likely to have been there for a few years. As Mike said, that role is specifically going to increase and become more of a policy assistant almost. And those individuals will probably, that might be the only meeting they have that day is with you. They'll remember you. I still remember having a conversation with the mayor of Twist about keeping the only hospital in that part of Okanagan County open, and that was 8-10 years ago. And so
I've seen legislators know that we are out there. The assistant goes in, lets the legislator know who's there. And it's the best excuse for them to get rid of the lobbyists that are sitting in front of them. Come on in. We'll make room, more chairs.
yeah,
Well, I will say the other piece that you said is that 15 minutes is the only 15 minutes you have, you've already missed your opportunity. Right now is the best time to actually start going and connecting in with your folks who are either going to already be in that office or who are running, and meet with folks on either side, whoever is running, no matter what. Everyone who is running, you should be meeting with them, and that's okay.
Yeah, so I just want to agree with Mike totally that if you don't know them before you go there, we don't emphasize going to Olympia for 150. We really work on them at home when we can quietly, try to get to know exactly what their values are. They're a new tax person, don't need first words out of their mouth, they embrace the charges.
Right.
And the key that I think we hit the home run with is, and it's more, once you get to know them, it takes a long time. But when they trust you and they call you, they have a landowner that's just harassing them to go in, the apologies harassing that landowner. If they stick the district on that landowner, help the landowner understand whether they save them a bunch of time. And that's usually the commissioners. They get a neighbor war going, something over like lake levels or fish and wildlife, they give us the first chance to try to solve the problem. So that's, I guess, my basic thoughts.
and sorry, Dave.
And then I was gonna say, and then my kind of question when we get to it, we'll come back to it maybe a little bit later. There's been talk of coordination, this district works, we work with our 7th district legislators, we talk our talk of our resources. You guys are working, other people are working on too, to make sure we're communicating, we're on the same track, but then we're still gonna, if we know that legislator, again, it's Northeast Washington, not gonna push rates and charges that won't work for us, and they'll just go, no, heck no, until they understand the bigger picture. Or we save their tail or save them a lot of money, so they can focus on rural dental offices, but we're dealing with people fighting fish and wildlife.
I was just gonna give you kudos, Dean, that you know what you're talking about, because every time I go up to Stevens Conservation District Board meeting, your state senator is sitting in the room just watching and listening.
Hey, I got 2 people that are running for
Yeah,
a representative position coming to a board meeting.
yes.
They want to know more of what we do. Why don't you get city mayor and you need to work more? He's coming to the board meeting even before his elections.
So I actually have good relationships, people that are running down in my area, so would it be wise to get to talk with them about certain issues and invite them to a board meeting? Because we've got new candidates running down in my area, so it's a good opportunity to.
Right now is a great opportunity. If you don't take it today, take that opportunity tomorrow. Not tomorrow, the next day, but sooner rather than later. And anyone who's running should know what we're doing. And it's not just for, again, us to tell them what we're doing, but to give them that. Yeah, it's a two-way.
And there's kind of out on, here pretty soon, the candidates will all be having town halls.
Yep.
Debates.
Yeah,
You can get into
as
one of those
possible.
debates, ask the top natural resource questions. They'll be fun. Where are you at with the Elks and the hay farmers farm?
And that's one of the things that I
They
think
get
is,
elected, and they want to know how can you help me?
how can you help? Yeah, and that's critical, just being at those meetings and cross-pollination and having that two-way conversation, super critical.
I want to go back to something to really better answer your question, just because, especially when you have, I know you're a brand new supervisor, so I think you guys are- so just that having someone new come in is awesome, because then you get kind of reevaluate who's the people of the district that are having those conversations, and making sure that the district as a whole, board, staff, supervisor, know who can say what where. There's been times where people have gotten the district in trouble for doing and saying some things that they shouldn't have, but there's also opportunities just to make sure, like, you just talk about it, the district, whether it's staff talking about it with the district manager or the supervisors at one of the board meetings, just making sure that when you're speaking on behalf of the district or not.
And I'm very fortunate, I have a good relationship with all three of my representatives. So education is important for me to learn from my leaders.
Well, so this is my second week, so I'm still getting the hang of everything. But I was just curious, about like the differences and like limitations of working with legislators, like as a government employees, because I know there's like certain things you can't do. And, like, it's about
Don't bribe them.
that. Right, that's
So as you probably know more from the state agency's perspective, the reason why WACD exists partially is because it's 501c6, we're a nonprofit. We can hire a lobbyist who can go in and talk on our behalf. We can advocate where as a state agency can only educate. And we can say, you should do this because of X, Y, and Z. And that's kind of how I've always thought about that relationship between a state agency and a state association, where we can be advocating for what they're wanting to do and be able to say a lot more down that pathway of persuasiveness as opposed to information. James, is that a good?
Yeah. It's a funny world working for
Yeah.
the commission, because we're slightly outside of the sort of main line of other executive branch agencies. I'm not appointed by the governor, I'm appointed by the people on the commission. And so I can represent their perspective, but it's limited. I have to be very careful, be very respectful. I don't pick fights with natural resource agencies just for fun, although sometimes it could be a good time. It's really, WACD is not tethered by all of the sort of protocol that goes on in that space. I would also encourage you, as you think about working with legislators, think about working with your county commissioners as well. Because often politics, I mean, it's a team sport, so the parties are together working on issues that are important to them, and the county commissioners and the legislators work together, talk to each other, and think about what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think as a manager, the other thing just to keep in mind is never break over any of those lines of, like you said, obviously bribery is not a thing. Should not be doing that. I know but the critical thing is always use the term educate, because we're not lobbying, we are educators. And our job as managers is to educate those who live within our community and work for us at the legislature, is the way I think.
If you were to say something like, if this money was approved, it would affect us in this way. Or if this was approved, that's okay too.
Correct.
You're not saying you should vote this way because that's gonna.
Right, yeah. So don't tell them how to vote, but explain to them why they would want to vote the way you want them to. And that's actually 100% legal. You are educating them. But if you are lobbying is saying vote yes, vote no. Education is, this is why you should vote a specific way. And then they get to make that decision.
Really clear and Their boundary.
Yes.
I have, a lot of you have developed this really long and really deep relationships with your legislators. You have some of them showing up at board meetings, some of them are seeing them multiple times throughout a year. And I follow you on social media, my goodness. I see all of them like every day, I mean, especially, but for those districts that are really established and they have very few opportunities to have touch points, what do you think is one of the most effective ways to engage with legislators, especially if you don't already have an existing relationship?
Well, I know it's easy in some parts of the state to rely on a neighboring district where if you've got 5 or 6 conservation districts with one particular set of legislators, I know that whether it's Mike Tobin bringing together the Yakima County folks, or you go to the Northeast and Craig Nelson's organized meetings where it's maybe just a couple districts to make that trip, or they have a meeting scheduled so that, you know, okay, Ponderay can't be there, but Stevens can. And knowing that Stevens and Ponderay have similar issues, I would say they're identical, but they have similar issues. And that's one easy way. But I think in other parts where you've got, I'll pick on San Juan because I don't think I see anyone here, where it's really only San Juan and Whatcom. And Whatcom County and San Juan County have very different issues. I think would be important to be strategic about making sure, you know, if not an in-person meeting, maybe it's making sure you send them an email, invite them to your annual business meeting, or if you have an annual event. Try to make sure that you're reaching out, even if it's just a little bit. And phone calls and emails and those ways where you don't have to spend a lot of time engaging in person can go a long way. You know, it takes 5 seconds to forward an email or to type something out. And my parents live in Lincoln County, and I know that when Dad sends an email, usually the legislative assistant or the legislator themselves, if they see it's a local resident, you know, someone within the district, they try to respond because they know that these are their voters, and even if, you know, it's 250 miles away, it's still possible to keep in touch. And, you know, you can always just forward information to them that you don't necessarily have to expect to reply.
I think one of the other things I did, somebody mentioned it before, is town halls. Like I've gone to the town halls because I know that there's gonna be folks there that will speak on these topics, and that I can also, like you said, ask that question to help people think about things a little bit differently. For us in our area, I think the other thing that we've been able to do is really just show up at other community events too, and just make sure that they know who we are and why we're doing the things that we're doing. So that's super important.
So as a special purpose district, there's 45 units. Pretty much it's the same. So we'll focus on there being 45 different issues. Issues can be different, but how we address them is a common thread that we all share. That's why it's easy for me when I go and I'm wanting to talk to the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, now just the 14th. Them, but I can also understand that the same mechanism I'm trying to impart upon them is the same for King. And if I can express that to them, then they know they can reach across the aisle on a particular issue. Or I'm providing more insight on what is this right here in buffer thing and the water that's going on. I can give them background, but still how the districts over there will address it versus on the east side. It's still address it the same way. There's a commonality. So I wouldn't focus on the fact that everybody's got a whole bunch of different issues. Because we really shouldn't be on the Hill lobbying for a very special interest for North Yakima. That's ridiculous. We work through and with WACD on whatever the issue is going to be. We complement the commission moving forward the budget decision packet. So we're all working on the same page. So use your relationship to express what the whole is doing.
That's a great point. you should be able to walk door to door and tell them what a conservation commission is right off, or conservation district is right off the bat. Because they might not be there with you. It might be a big surprise if you missed. So the elevator speech is really important, and lead with the headline.
You missed the second day of the spring legislative workshop when Jennifer made a really great point that pivots on that, which is you are part of a network of 45 districts providing conservation programs and services to every corner of the state of Washington. That's a really powerful entry point when you're talking with a legislator, that you are part of something bigger. It's not just, I'm here to talk about this one issue. I'm actually part of a big system, a big effective system that's been in place for a long time. And you can use that leverage.
So thinking about potential of CTA as part of a budget package. My legislators will know exactly how North Yakima is going to do it to help their constituents. But the cross message is just like the legislators in Pierce, their constituents will get assistance through CTA. It'll look different, same mechanism to get on the ground, handling outreach, cost share, education, all that stuff. But there's a commonality regardless of your political affiliation. So you can now partner with each other at the legislative level, have greater success of actually moving forward budget items like CTA.
So I was at the WSU, WSTA conference last week. And I can kind of see based on what we're talking about, that there's some things that we're going to be like bringing up in the next legislative session. To what degree is the commission, like we talked about partnerships at the district levels, to what degree is the commission working on partnerships at that next level, like with WSDA and like the work that's being done there?
Obviously with federal agencies or?
Well, Washington State Department of Agriculture is partnering with Washington State University to do an agricultural viability survey. And they're going to be focusing on wheat, potatoes, dairy, and tree fruits and sustainable small farmers, small acreage farming, and looking at costing with the idea that, and you can kind of see them shaping this legislatively around issues like water, regulatory burden, and labor as their focus areas. And there was a few board of supervisors members there, but they were also like tied to them. It was really heavy to WSD and WSDA, obviously. Yeah. But I am just wondering to what degree.
I wish I could have been there. I heard it was very good. I had another, I had 3 things going on at the same time, which is every week, most of us. We're developing what we call a science hub. I'm not sure that that's the best name for it, but you'll hear from Levi Kiesecker about that, who's running it. And we're partnering with WSU and other agencies in that space to develop science to help support our program. Ultimately, what I want to accomplish is getting resources for you. And so we're reaching out to develop science and relationships across multiple natural resource agencies at the state and federal level. There's the governor has a natural resource subcabinet, which I sit on with the Washington State Department of Agriculture and the DNR and Fish and Wildlife, et cetera. And we talk about our resource needs and helping each other bring in additional resource needs, but also with NRCS and FSA, et cetera. Secretary Bonnie was just in Washington State to review a DESA project. So there's a lot of discussion there about bringing more. We also go back to DC on fly-in with NRCS to talk about our program funding and more result of our recent one, more money is. So we're always looking for those opportunities. If you see opportunities that look like there's real potential, I'd love to get a phone call from you saying, hey, James, look at this. I guarantee I'll get it.
We have 10 minutes left and I have Kate Delavon online who has her hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to chime in here because I could mostly hear that question. It was about how are we working with WSDA along on ag viability? Is that mostly what that question was?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just talking to some staff at WSDA last week about the conference, how they thought it went, if there'll be another one, and on what is driving their current strategy around how they're approaching ag viability. And one thing that's important to note is that conference and the current study they're working on are the result of legislation that is replicating what California did previously for a competitiveness survey. So it's largely looking at how is regulation impacting agriculture? And so they're trying to wrap their head around how to get those answers for the legislature without creating a report that says regulation is the problem. As a state agency, that's a cabinet agency, they're kind of in a tough position there. So we're having conversation around here's what we're doing related to agricultural viability. James talked about some of it. And looking for opportunities for where we can coordinate our efforts or not have us at least working crossways or duplicating efforts.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful in this instance for the fact that state agencies like the USDA, DNR, Ecology have a seat on the commission. They have ex officio members. And so there's been times that I've seen someone from Department of Ag and that representative come in and ask the commission to be a part of the program, develop something together. And it's a point person for James to go through if he's wanting to get into that's something that if it's specifically ag viability, he can go to Houston, so very different tire, so it's Danny Velarde, and say, hey, we want to get involved with this. And for WACD, and just to pitch something that we do, our membership has processes through regional meetings and the state conference where folks can say, we want the association as a whole to prioritize this, to get involved in that. And so if there's something that you think, our district is doing and we think that should go statewide, or you're not seeing something happening that you want to, ask your board, ask your supervisors to write a resolution, and it puts us on the books for the next 5 years as being a part of that priority.
I said we had 10 minutes and we were actually at the wrap up 10 minutes. So, well, the next session starts in 6 minutes.
Just the other thing I would recommend is if you are questioning, there's a lot of folks in this room who've done this for quite a while. We are not, I'm going to say I'm not the expert. I won't speak for them, but I don't feel I'm the expert. I've just been able to kind of navigate some things pretty nicely with folks. But please ask questions, collaborate with other districts. If you have a question and you're like, does this work, does this not work? Don't hesitate to reach out. This is what we're all for. Again, like Tobin said before he left, we're 45 going for the same process. We all need to come together and actually have a collaborative effort. So
I think before we
What's that?
If I could introduce a concept for you to take back, it would be something from the IT world called a run book and a playbook. The run book is a set of recipes for how to do something. This is how we pay bills every month. We write it down. It's a recipe. Somebody new can come in, follow that, and understand it. A playbook is the strategy questions that Dana was talking about. If this kind of question comes up, how have we thought through how we're going to respond to that? So working with legislators, having a playbook of the go, no-go zone, our high points, and the places we absolutely won't go is important to help you stay on track, stay on message. And it's clear then to everybody from your district that's going to talk to legislators, this is our playbook. We know what we're going to do.
Thank you, John. Thank you.